across the Gulf into Iran, so it will turn rather unsettled here. Some bits and pieces of rain, maybe some sleet and snow too, into the far north of India, but down to the south, that's where the real weather action remains. Further flooding rains coming back in across Sri Lanka. Still no sign of any let-up in the flood conditions that we have here. The rain has eased meanwhile across a good part of southern Africa. Pockets of heavy rain just towards Drakensberg Mountains, into Mozambique, into Tanzania. More very heavy showers to come once again across a good part of Madagascar. Signs of the rain easing at last, I'm pleased to say, for Rio de Janeiro. It's largely fine and dry here over the next day or so. Rio at 30 degrees Celsius. You can see where the really wet weather is. That's down across Uruguay into the far north of Argentina. Buenos Aires should stay fine and dry. Cloud clearing away here, 30 degrees.
Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline.
On the next Riz Khan show, we discuss the fear of regional contagion as leaders in Syria, Jordan and Yemen make preemptive changes to avoid similar uprisings.
Riz Khan, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Where there are stories to be told.
President Khan said, no questions here. That's Al Jazeera, I know these guys, you know.
Where power is abused.
We've definitely found a black jail here. That door never opened again.
Where forces collide.
The dust of this conflict is far from being settled.
Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. A quick reminder of the top stories here on Al Jazeera. Southern Sudan has voted overwhelmingly to split from the north. Official results showing almost 99% of voters in favour of independence. The new status will be confirmed in July. Protesters in Egypt are calling for more mass rallies on Tuesday as they press for the resignation of President Hosni Mubarak. The government has tried to appease demonstrators by offering a public sector pay rise. And an activist whose Facebook page inspired the Egypt uprising has been freed by authorities, while Ghonim had been detained for 12 days. Well, joining me on the line now is Gigi Ibrahim, who'd stayed overnight in Tahrir Square. Gigi, it's day 15 of these protests. Tell us what happened overnight and what's happening in the square now.
People are sleeping all over, but many are still chanting against Mubarak and demanding the removal of regime. And actually, there's a new chant out that says power, greatness, square, revolution in everywhere. And they're now chanting it right after the Fajr prayer, and many people are expected to show up today after Wael Ghanim's interview last night that moved a lot of people. So a lot of people are coming to Tahrir today.
Gigi, as you say, more protesters expected in the square later. I mean, do you think people will come out and support the protest today? I mean, it's been 2 weeks since this thing started.
Yes, I've been here every day, and there are thousands and thousands of people that come here every day, despite the rain, the cold, the violence that we've had a couple of days with the thugs, and even with the negative media propaganda. It's not keeping people at home. People are coming to see it for themselves, and when they see the truth for themselves, they keep on coming every day.
And what are people like yourself making of the release of Wael Ghanim?
I think Wael is a really sincere and great person, but also he started something. I mean, that's really one of the main moving forces for this whole movement, starting with the creation of the Khalid Said page, which really gave a lot of people who are independent, not really political, saying that we're all Khalid Said, and calling out for freedom and democracy and mobilizing and taking an action for a better future. And for him to be detained for 12 days, not being able to see, being blindfolded, his amazing speech and interview that that he did last night on national TV really moved a lot of people who were even maybe against the whole idea of civil disobedience or staying in Tahrir. I was talking to some friends and they told me that talking to their friends who opposed this are now today coming to Tahrir because of Wael. So this is something great that he gave all the a great momentum to this all revolution.
Let me ask you a final question, Gigi. President Mubarak met with his new cabinet yesterday, and he announced a 15% pay rise for public sector workers and their pensions. Is that good news?
I mean, this shows that they're struggling for every last bit to kind of start pleasing the people, but I think it's a bit too late. People, this is way too late. People are fed up, and they don't demand the raise that they haven't given for years and years, and the minimum wage law that they haven't implemented for now months and months after the court ruling. So this is definitely yes, good news, but it just shows that. That they're struggling and to please the people, but it's not going to stop them demanding the removal of Mubarak, and people want to see real change, not just concessions at this point.
All right, Gigi Ibrahim there, one of the protesters in Tahrir Square. Gigi, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera. Now, officials from North and South Korea have come together for the first dialogue between the two countries since September. The meeting will lay the groundwork for higher-level talks, possibly between ministers. South Korean delegates left for the border village of Panmunjom, where the meetings are being held. Tensions have been high on the Korean peninsula since the South accused the North of sinking its warship and killing 46 sailors last March. There are fears that calls for sanctions to stay in place in Myanmar could hurt more than the government and its allies. The party of pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi wants existing restrictions to remain. But Al Jazeera's special correspondent in Myanmar says the recommendation could affect foreign investment and further divide the opposition movement.
Well, since Aung San Suu Kyi was released last November, there seemed to be indications that the Nobel laureate and her party, the NLD, were considering supporting what has been seen as a widespread push for a lifting of sanctions. We heard suggestions of this in her many speeches, including at Davos just last week. However, it is clear now that the party is sticking to its position on the issue. It's being seen as a major blow to the other opposition groups that have been calling for sanctions to be lifted. Over the last few weeks, we've spoken to many of these leading opposition voices in the country, and the general consensus among them is that these sanctions have only hurt the poor and done little to curb the lifestyle of the ruling military-backed government. One of the clear examples of this is the capital of Naypyidaw, where military figures run and profit from some of the most luxurious hotels in the country. At the same time, the average per capita income for people here is less than $500 a year. And opposition voices point to this fact and say people are desperate for international factories to come into this country to provide desperately needed jobs. However, it is very much a catch-22 situation. Speaking to some of Aung San Suu Kyi's people over the last few days, they tell us the concern is that by opening the doors, Myanmar will follow the way of countries like Vietnam, where political rule is in fact strengthened by improving economics in a country and where corruption becomes further institutionalized. What other opposition groups, apart from the NLD, are calling for is targeted sanctions, more specifically geared towards a ban on such things as the sale of arms, perhaps a freezing of offshore bank accounts. On the sidelines of this debate, overall, is a general concern that Aung San Suu Kyi's position is further marginalizing herself and her party and dividing an opposition in this country that has grown increasingly fractious.
A former Philippine military chief and cabinet minister accused of massive corruption has died in an apparent suicide. Witnesses say retired General Angelo Reyes was visiting his mother's grave when he died from a single gunshot wound to the chest. Reyes, who headed the armed forces from 2001 to 2003, was recently accused of pocketing at least $1 million of military funds. He's denied the accusations. France's foreign minister is facing calls to resign after taking a holiday in Tunisia in late December during the country's uprising. Michelle Alliot-Marie has said she regrets taking the holiday. She's also admitted she used a Tunisian businessman's private jet several times during her stay there, but she's refusing to stand down. Meanwhile, Tunisia's parliament has passed emergency powers for the interim president. The unprecedented move comes as the main ruling party, the RCD, was suspended from all political activity. Nazneen Mashiri now reports.
Democracy Tunisian style. Protesters try to stop politicians entering parliament. They're activists and lawyers who suffered under Ben Ali. And now they want this institution dissolved and the old faces of the regime out.
These nominated members of parliament are part of this regime, and we do not like them, and we do not accept them.
And inside Tunisia's parliament, scenes this country could only have dreamt of.